From hot dogs to fish to veggie burgers, pairing wine with food off the grill can be a daunting task for some people. So today, let's take a look at 6 of the most popular grilled dishes and 2 wines that'll pair with each. Before I get into it, I do just want to point out that there's a link in the description for every one of these bottles. First, we'll look at hot dogs. If you're going with hot dogs with no topping or with ketchup, mustard, and relish, you know, that classic picture of a hot dog, then I would point you to Bodegas Muga Rosado. This is a bright and fresh Rioja rosé that has plenty of acidity. Hot dogs are salty and fatty, and the acidity really helps clean everything up. And plus, the fruit in this rosé pairs well with things like ketchup and relish without making the dish feel heavy or overly sweet. If you're going with a more beefy topping like chili or bacon, then you'll want to go with a wine that's a little bit heavier. For this, I would point you to Lucci Lambrusco Secco. This is a sparkling red wine with darker fruit than the rosé and that extra bit of bubble. The bubbles will help cut through the fat and the salt, and the darker fruit will hold up better to those heavier flavors. Lambrusco comes from a part of Italy where cured meats and smoked sausages are a staple, so this pairing makes a lot more sense than it might sound at first. Now, let's move on to cheeseburgers. My first choice is another sparkling Lambrusco, and that's Venturini Baldini Lambrusco Reggiano. This Lambrusco is even darker and more structured, with flavors of cherry, pepper, and spice, and a little bit of tannin. The fruit and tannin handle the grilled beef very well, while the acidity and bubbles cut through all the fat and cheese. Plus, that little bit of spice in the flavor profile means this wine will stand up and pair well with pretty much any topping you can put on a burger. Now, if you don't want a sparkling red wine, then I would point you to something like Odero Barbera de Alba. Barbera is one of my favorite burger wines because it gives you that dark fruit and spice without bringing a wall of tannin behind it. Now let's move on to some chicken. If you're like me and you like to do a dry rub with paprika, salt, pepper, and herbs for your chicken, then Boundary Breaks Cabernet Franc is a great option to pair with it. This Cabernet Franc out of the Finger Lakes is medium-bodied and fresh with a sense of restraint. It has enough of a savory character to pair well with the chicken without overshadowing it. And if you'd like to go with a rosé for your chicken, Domaine Rimbert Le Petit Cochon Bronze is a delicious rosé made from Cinsault and Syrah. The red fruit and blood orange in this wine can soften some of that smoky, peppery spice, while the herbal side matches what's happening in the rub. Now let's look at one of my favorite things to put on the grill, and that's flank steak. I like to keep it pretty simple with salt and pepper and a good crust, so you don't necessarily need the biggest, fattest cab that you can find. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't go with a cab at all here. I would go with Bodegas Catena La Consulta Malbec. This wine has deep black fruit and smooth tannins. It has some weight behind it, but since flank steak is relatively lean, you don't need the heaviest bottle of wine you can find for this. But if you're gonna get fancy and add some chimichurri or do a garlic and herb marinade, then I would point you to Bodega Catena Zapata's San Carlos Cabernet Franc. This wine's a little bit more complex with a little bit more acidity. You get notes of herbs and black pepper and red fruit, of course, but basically that means it's speaking the same language as your marinade or your chimichurri. Malbec is perfect for the beef and char pairing, whereas the Cabernet Franc is more seasoning driven. Now, grilled fish, it kind of depends on what kind of fish you're doing. If you're grilling up some cod, snapper, or sea bass, you know, those leaner styles of fish, then I would point you to Legado del Fraile Albariño. It's kind of an obvious answer, but for good reason. It's a little bit floral with green apple and citrus, plus great acidity. Acidity brightens the fish and works really well with herbs and lemon. Plus, Albariño comes from Rías Bajas in Spain, where they have plenty of time to figure out what pairs well with fish. Now, if you're grilling up some richer fish like salmon or tuna, then you can get away with a red wine here. I would have you try out Domaine de Cornillac Beaujolais. This is gamay with dark berries, lively acidity, and very little tannin. The low tannin is important here because big tannic wines can taste kind of metallic when paired with fish. Finally, let's look at veggie burgers. For a darker, earthier patty made with mushrooms or beets or black beans, I would go with Clotilde Legrand Saumur Champigny. It's a Cabernet Franc with dark, leafy, and peppery notes. Those earthy and herbal flavors complement that earthier style of veggie patty, especially if it's made with mushrooms or cheese or grilled onions. For a lighter veggie burger patty made with veggies and grains and chickpeas, I would point you to Joseph Drew and Macon Village. It's a fresh, round Chardonnay with yellow fruit and enough body to support the burger. It's also really good with stuff like grilled zucchini. And as a bonus, if you got invited to a cookout and you're not sure what they're having, there is an easy answer, and that is champagne. or at least traditional method sparkling wine. Something like Carlos Ceres Sparkling Rioja or André Clouet Silver are both delicious bottles of sparkling wine that work very well with pretty much any food you put next to it. So next weekend when you're firing up the grill, I hope this list makes it a little bit easier for you to pick out the bottle that's going to go with your food. There's a link down in the description so you can check out all 12 of these bottles. Now don't forget to share this video because wine is always better when you're pairing it with someone else. Anyway, that's going to be it for me this week, and I'll see you next time. Adios.